That's just me personally, I guess.
All right.
So the next question is, we're not getting awakenings with Valencia. You guys, we saw a post about that a little while back, and we're potentially not getting for them for a few months, are we? So the first part of this question is, do you know exactly when we're getting awakenings? Is it going to be Valencia Part 2, I presume?
Not necessary. Most likely we're going to split it up from Valencia 2 as well.
Right, okay.
The current plan is to release Awakenings a little bit later than Valencia 2. It's not 100% finalized yet. The roadmap is so far discussed for the next 2 months, and beyond that, it's everything is quite flexible or dynamically changing rather, based on our requirements and also our progress, and also on the development stage of new Korean content that we might be able to adapt in an earlier phase. Obviously not new regions such as Kamasilvir or whatever else comes, but like smaller features, like if they start revamping certain features, then we might want to grab that in between, which might postpone or delay one or the other initially planned content release. But the current goal is actually to release Awaken. I said that before in an interview, that our like preferred scenario would be that we would release the Awakenings all together.
Yeah.
Except for those classes where it doesn't exist yet. I think that's would be the Wizard, Witch, and Ninja, and Kunoichi.
Yeah. Okay.
But just because it can't be avoided, because otherwise we would have to wait until the end of the year.
Yeah,
or something
very
like
long
that.
time. I mean, I think the concern is obviously is that lots of people, like I've got a warrior, and I made my warrior purely for the awakening side of things, and lots of people are playing this game because they saw certain classes with awakenings, was like, oh, that looks really cool, I want to play that class. Like Berserkers have a pretty awesome awakening, and now lots of people have been quite disheartened at the idea that they're going to have to wait, 2-3+ months now for them to get a weapon which essentially completely changes the way the class plays, and most times makes it a hell of a lot more enjoyable.
But I can elaborate on one thing though, because I think it's a slight misperception of players out there about our concept or our idea when to release the Awakenings. So don't get us wrong. If we say we want to release all Awakenings at once, it doesn't mean that we are pushing Awakenings back for a warrior or a ranger, for example, or berserker who got it like fairly early on the Korean servers. No, it just means the other classes are getting it earlier. So the initial stage where we release the Awakenings, that's the earliest stage where we can release Awakenings.
Right. Okay. All right.
So it's not necessarily pushing back. It's just actually like pulling forward, so to speak, for the other classes. It's also not. I mean, we did get some feedback after the last interview where we mentioned that we would like to release all the Awakenings at once, and some people mentioned that they would like to see Awakenings rather released in batches, or preferably first for Warrior and those classes that are like a little bit in a disadvantage, mainly melee. But we still hold on to the idea to release all at once, because overall we believe that it will grant a better gameplay experience to everyone if we release it in a big update for all the characters at once. But again, that can change down the road. However, the earliest date for when we can actually release, for several reasons, such as the technical part, the QA part, translation, and also fitting into our content build in the first place, that date doesn't shift back much anyways. It's going to be the earliest date that we can have it, we will have it, but just the other classes will be actually at in the advantage of getting it earlier.
Right. Okay, fair enough. And the last thing that I wanted to just talk about Awakenings real quick is when Valencia came out in Korea, we had some classes had their awakening weapons, which was sort of balanced. That's why Valencia was kind of balanced around it. Do you know what I mean? Like some of the mobs and everything in the desert. Yes. And you guys mentioned that you're going to be balancing Valencia to be to work without awakenings. Is that correct?
That is the information that I have at this stage as well. Yes. So
do we have any information more kind of thing, like what exactly it's going to be?
All the information that I can give, that I'm certain on, is that with the new enchantment cap of +20, you will be able to experience or enjoy most of the parts of Valencia. Not all of them. Some of them will be still not restricted, but still rather limited to Awakening class later on because they were designed for it. But other than that, with the higher upgrades, you will be able to actually enjoy that content as well.
Okay.
You don't require high upgrades to enjoy Valencia in the first place. You can go there also with regular upgrades or really regular enchantment. But obviously, this is like aiming at the higher level players. So you will require a lot of preparation. Other than that, it's just the mostly known content for Valencia update that is already spread all over the net anyways.
Okay, cool. All right, fair enough. I was going to ask some follow-up question. Oh, yes. So, one other thing whilst we're talking about whilst the plus 20 thing came up, was there were talks of you guys changing the way the enhancement levels worked. So, it was... someone in plus 20 gear does a lot of damage. I know it's very hard to get, because it's got a high fail chance. But you guys were talking about potentially smoothing out the damage scaling curve of the gear. Is that something that's being done, or have you scrapped that idea?
This is still in discussion. Currently, actually, I would prefer not to give too much information about this part because just for one particular reason, because I don't want to give the wrong expectation on this matter, because this is really still in development. There's still some adjustments. As previously mentioned, we were already about to release it, but then we postponed it again because we're not fully satisfied with the outcome, and we're still trying to adjust. So I cannot really give an insight on the final matter at this stage.
Okay, but it is something that you guys are still considering. It hasn't been dropped as an idea.
We're still pursuing this. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's good to hear.
It's not dropped.
I'm slightly concerned about getting blown up by rangers. Something came up a little while ago, which was the HP you gain when you level up is random.
Yes.
And you guys posted up that you sort of like look into it and see what could be done with Pearl Abyss. Was anything ever done with that? Is there any news on that situation?
This is again like a matter of perception and about the background from most Western players that are like Western games, where this concept is very unfamiliar, very unusual, that you kind of get like random stat boosts in between, especially on HP and MP.
Yeah.
And usually you re-roll at the beginning stage, like the first character you create, like the level 1. That is something that you might have to re-roll. That's like fairly close to the D&D rule set back from the days. However, we discussed this matter like several times with the developers, and I'm not even too certain what to think about this myself, to be honest. I have my perception of this matter, and after discussing this with the developers, I kind of have to agree with it. Although my perception also gives me a little bit different impression, probably closer to what you guys obviously feel, that this is like a little bit odd. However, the strong stance from developers is clearly on this matter, and I kind of have to agree on this one. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you have like a few HP more or less. It really depends on the situation.
No.
Because if we would talk about an absolutely equalized, super balanced environment, where super balanced in the regards of something where you have preset characters, not an MMO style of game, like something like Overwatch, for example.
Yeah.
Where every character is preset, everyone starts at the same stage. So there's no alteration. There's purely skill involved. Then yes, then I would agree that even like a slightest change of HP MP would actually matter. But in a game like an MMO with open world PvP and Siege War to come, in those scenarios, it just doesn't make a significant change to the gameplay at the end of the day if you have like 10, 15, or 20 more HP or MP than other players.
Yeah, but a lot of things that people like to do is sort of like min-max, for example.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I wanted to point out next, is that it will be a big issue for min-maxer because they feel dissatisfied with the situation, with the outcome.
Yeah, and it just seems weird to leave something down to RNG, which is,
yeah,
like you say, it's the first game I've ever seen where it's like, yeah, have a random amount of HP when you level up.
Yes, but you have to keep in mind that BDO does a lot of things that are very unusual, that are completely thinking outside of the box. For some things, it makes it like really beautiful and unique. On other things, I don't necessarily agree as a player. myself. Like, I don't really necessarily agree on all the features and all the settings on BDO, but I have to agree on this particular one because it's just based on your own perception of Western games. I mean, we're trying to cater to the Western market, obviously, but however, we still have to keep in mind that it's a very bold move of the developers to bring this feature into the game. I would prefer not to have it, to be honest, as gamer, as player, as a project manager, for all three
Yeah.
kind of persons I can be. But nonetheless, I do have to agree on this matter that it really just matters for people that have or that approach the game with a certain mindset and perception for those min-maxers, for example. So if they try to overlook this particular little detail, I think they might be a little bit happier. Unfortunately, this is something currently that will not be changed, or is at least not in discussion to be changed.
Okay. All right. It just okay, fair enough. It just seems like a very random, like unnecessary thing to drop in the game. But okay. Next thing is, can we expect a more detailed character menu with things like accuracy, evasion, melee defense, range defense at any point? Or even better than that is, are you able to give us any detailed information exactly what those stats do?
They actually don't want to comment on this at all.
Really? Okay.
So this is something they're very secretive about, very sensitive as well. So they don't really want to make that open for discussion. Just to give a little bit of more insight about this matter, because I think that the answer would be quite dissatisfying for most users.
Yeah.
To hear about that. I mean, me myself, I'm a huge fan of games where you can actually spend tons of hours in the calculator and just. Sometimes I just actually spend more time in the calculator preparing my character, how it looks like at the end, rather than actually playing the game.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Western players actually have the same mindset. They love to play around with calculators. It's just something that we grew up with, that people just enjoy for several reasons. Especially because you can also do it at work while not actually playing the game. But that being said, we try to educate the developers to a certain point where we put some emphasis on this feature, and we're not giving up on this. So we're still pursuing or doing our best to pursue this feature in a far away future, maybe, because I believe that will take time. However, to a certain extent, I can also, when I try to think from developer side, I can also understand their concept behind it, because BDO is, unlike most, I would say unlike any other or almost any other Asian game out there, is incredibly fastly adapting user feedback so far. It's also rapidly actually progressing in regards of development. Even though it takes time for us to actually localize everything to the Western market, but if you look at the Korean market, the progression of their content is quite fast actually, and the in-depth concepts that they are releasing as additional features is really incredible. So the next one will be the naval warfare and additional awakenings, the undersea. So everything like that was, like in most other games, this is implemented right from the start, right? So here they're adding more and more really significant content actually to the game that makes the whole meta of the game like changes the gameplay. So that being said, it's quite a long way to go, and it's a really fast-paced progression that we have so far, especially for us here in the Western market. Like the last 3 months, we did like so many really fast-paced changes. If you imagine now, if you deploy like a change that affects stats like, for example, accuracy or crit rate or whatever, and you will have that constantly changed, and you try to balance and keep balancing the game to a certain extent, then it's really hard to, I believe it's really hard to A/B test properly, because especially if you have those numbers right in front of you, then you're going to be also really vulnerable about like criticism. And if all those stats are more hidden, and people have to actually, it requires more time to actually figure out, like, okay, I increase instead of having like 5 AP on my ring, I rather get another ring like I don't know, a pre-1 friendship ring, and then get like 3 AP and like 2 accuracy or something like that, and maybe it does something better to my damage. So I think that's like one reason. So they want to buy themselves a little bit more time to actually more A/B test. I guess that's just my perception and assuming more or less. The other way is also, or the other thing that I see there is, especially Prolabis is, and I actually appreciate that about those developers. They are not. I mean, it's a two-sided sword. I have to agree on that one. But what I want to say is that especially Prolabis is trying to make a game where players actually are capable of um, exploring the game, exploring the gameplay, exploring the features that it has, and exploring on their own and to figure out what's going on. Some people might say that this game is clearly lacking on tutorials or explaining like how certain features work, and I absolutely agree on that. It's really hard. Let's say the Amity game, for example, is really terribly explained in the game.
Yeah.
However,
there are quite a lot of little things which are, quite poorly explained.
yeah, exactly. I also felt like this the first time I played the game. But nowadays, I do the Amity game like it's nothing. Like, I just get like 1,000 Amity very easily with most of the characters out there. And you just kind of create like a feeling for how it actually works. And the other thing is, for example, in the like this feature, for example, that you have to talk to certain NPCs to unlock another NPC. This actually reminds me of the very old school gameplay of most RPGs from like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't hold your hand.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I do love that. I do love that with this game, and the fact, you do have to figure out stuff by yourself and everything. It's just like there are people that have done so many hours of research into accuracy and everything, and people release guides and all this stuff. I'm using accuracy as the main one because that's the one that everyone sort of talks about and thinks about. And it's just like, is there a soft cap for accuracy? Is there not? What exactly does accuracy do? How much accuracy does a Laverto weapon give or a Zaka weapon? It's just all stuff like that. That was the reason why I think a lot of us would love to see exactly how it works. But at the same time, I can see what you're saying. The fact that they want to kind of keep some of these things a secret and allow us to figure it out ourselves. And it sounds like they didn't want to discuss it at all, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's just like it's just generally speaking. I mean, I totally agree, and I absolutely understand like the player perspective on this matter. I would love to see all the stats in particular and just start calculating myself. On the other hand, I'm enjoying the game without even knowing exactly whether I'm doing the max damage or not. It just kind of works, and to a certain extent, even though it's really really hard for most players, and especially if there are not thinking as an entity, but as a big group called community, then it always makes it really hard to understand the concept of developers, because I see like developers in general, because I've been working with them for several developers over the past years. I see developers more like artists. They have a concept of their game, and their game is like a state of the art. It's like it's a piece of art actually, and they have a certain concept behind it. And whether you like it or not, you can either accept what the artist is trying to say with this game or with his piece of art and try to enjoy it as it is, or you not. And I think it's not necessarily required that they make like all those particular changes just to cater into everyone's perception. However, I do agree on to a certain extent also that if we want to be successful on the Western market, we need to adapt, and that's part of my job, to actually localize as much as possible to actually fit into this market.
Yeah.
So it's still like an act of balancing this concept of developers, what they have in mind, and what our community actually wants, to find like some sort of a good middle ground or some alternatives that both sides didn't think of in the first place.
Yeah.
But it's still a long road to go. I mean, we're just 3 months into the service, so there's still plenty of time.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So the next thing that we wanted to ask is, again, another massively asked question: is when when are we getting ninjas? And on top of that, is when they come out, are you going to be providing them with a form of catch-up mechanic like bonus XP or increased skill points, so that they can catch up to the high-level players quicker?
Ninja Kunichi, well, obviously after Valencia. The main thing, or the main reason why we were waiting with it, was not necessarily because we wanted to, because we had to. They were actually planning some rebalancing on the Ninja and Kunoichi, also on the Korean servers. So we actually had to wait for that take place first, so we can adapt it right away in a proper state. So once that is deployed on the Korean service, we can immediately almost adapt the character class to our service.
Okay.
There are no natural catch-up mechanics, such as increased damage or faster gameplay that you have with that class compared to other classes.
Right. Okay.
But we might offer some artificial catch-up events, such as a boost event like for XP or something like that, where they can actually like climb faster up the ladder.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, so just to clarify that, basically what you're saying is the reason we haven't got Ninja yet is because there was some balancing. They were doing some balancing, weren't they, or like redesigning the class a little bit.
Yes.
So you're essentially waiting for Korea to finish doing that, and as soon as that's done, you guys can then translate it, essentially bring it over to the Western version.
That's the plan, yes.
Right, okay, so that's what we're waiting on at the moment then. Alright, okay, cool, no problem. This question. So, we had a change last week. You're probably going to know exactly what I'm going to say straight away.
Yeah, 1%.
yeah. So basically, I'm just going to explain this real quick for anyone that's watching who doesn't know. Last week there was a change which impacted open world PvP quite heavily, and that is that when you now die in open world PvP, as long as you are in positive karma, you no longer lose experience. So the reason I'm bringing up this question, the main thing that a lot of us want to know is, why did you do this? Like, what was your reasoning?
The reasoning behind it is mainly, or the intention of developers was to make the game less punishing in regards of it's some sort of a catch-up mechanic, because they were afraid that, especially in the higher leveling grounds, or like, let's say, well, higher leveling or grinding level or grinding spots such as Catfish, for example, or later Sosan. Yeah. I mean, Sosan is now the new Catfish, actually,
Yes.
because back then it was Catfish and the main focus of PvP was happening there. Now it's shifted to Sosan.
Yeah.
So the main reason, I believe, of their intention behind it is that how to word this properly. They wanted to make the death itself less punishing when you die on a higher level, and to make it to enable like a smoother gameplay for those who try to catch up. So otherwise, those who have like high gear, and what you said before, for example, caters into this or plays into this scenario as well. So let's go back to the word boss issue, where you said that it's going to be fairly easy if you're already like really strong to actually empower yourself even more, get richer, get higher gear. And also, if you are in a high-level guild, it's going to be even easier to monopolize those regions, such as Solsan, for example. So you can easily, and that happened to me as well. I mean, I had to go there at some point because like some quests were leading me there, or the daily Black Spirit quest was leading me there to do whatever. And I didn't really want to go there because I knew exactly what was awaiting me there. And I mean, I got like really, my neck got snapped within like 2 milliseconds. I just went through the gate and just got killed immediately.
Yeah.
It was quite frustrating. I have a different mindset. I don't really mind. I just either try to fight back, or just try to avoid, or just try to grind at other spots that are maybe not as efficient, but still lucrative.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of space in the game. You can really just move to another place. And I think when Valencia comes out and the Siege War comes out, the whole issue around, or the whole issue that people see and believe there is, will kind of resolve itself. Because I think one of the main reasons why people complain so heavily about this feature is they had the feeling that we were kind of castrating the open world PvP. To a certain degree, I agree. But you also have to keep in mind we are lacking major content, such as Valencia region, which will open the world by another, I would say, like 50 to 60% of the current landmass.
Yeah.
On top of what's already available.
People will be more split up.
Exactly. We'll split more up. So
yeah.
those spots will not be fighting for as severely. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind is one of the main features of the game, the open world PvP concept of Siege War and Node War. this will cater into the PvP players and give them something else to do. It will give them like a purpose in this
as opposed
game.
to just random killing. But
exactly. So I mean, you can still fight off people from your leveling spot by killing them.
But they can just keep coming back. That's the problem. Like, now they can just, like, you know...
They can also come back if they lose XP. Of course, the higher level you are beyond level 55, you don't tend to go back there. You rather retreat and go somewhere else or just wait till morning
exactly.
time.
Whereas now we've got, like, I'll be grinding, for example. Not that I grind much, I'm still level 55. But if I am grinding, you know, you get the occasional person who turns up and you fight them for the spot like we've always done. You always fight them for the spot. And instead of them losing a couple times, they're like, all right, I've lost a few % XP. I'm going to leave now because I don't want to keep losing XP or using Alien's Tears or whatever they do. They just keep throwing their body at you. And you run out of karma, and then you can't kill them anymore. I mean, okay, yeah, maybe they're not getting efficient grinding either, but they're sure as hell going to annoy the crap out of you just to essentially grief you. And that's kind of the problem that's come apart this. There's no counter to that in the current changes to the PK system.
Yes, but it's also something that I mentioned, I believe, last week somewhere in the forum, or one of our CMs did. I'm not sure who it was. Anyhow, something that we communicated clearly was that what we wanted to do, because what happened is actually we implemented this feature, and then what happened immediately was like a huge wave of ranting on the forum, which, again, I can understand because I play this game as well, like almost every day, till late night. So I can absolutely understand those people complaining about this feature. However, what I cannot, or to a certain degree again, because what we try to communicate is that we would like to see if we implement something, and there's also some sort of part of testing. Sometimes we just want to implement something, or developers want to implement something, and we want to see how it actually plays out. A lot of people actually see it, and with their perception in mind, they just believe it's going to be really, really bad. Now, sometimes it doesn't actually make such a big change to the environment at the end of the day. Now, of course, in this scenario, what you just explained is absolutely true. We did actually, and we're still discussing with developers to implement features, rolling back feature of like.
Sorry, you lagged out. Sorry, you lagged out. Then what was that? You said you're implementing a what?
Oh, sorry. Is it better again? Or?
Yeah, it's fine now. Yeah, it just lagged out.
All right. So what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to, or what we try to do is we wanted to wait at least like a week to gather some more in-depth constructive feedback instead of the initial very emotional feedback from the first 1 or 2 days where people just completely overreacted to that feature. And then we wanted to see actually how it actually plays out in the game itself at the end of the day. So now that we have that data and we're still evaluating this, we are still discussing, or we are still considering how to approach this without necessarily rolling back to the old system, but rather adding some new features or adjusting existing features. One of the ideas that we had, for example, was to remove the opportunity to reuse the Alien's Tier in the moment when you die from PvP, and that you actually have to respawn in the closest city instead of the node.
That's one of the ones that's one of the ones that we were talking about on my stream the other day. Yeah, it's like if you die like 2 or 3 times in a row, you can no longer res at node. You have to res at town.
Or something like that. So some control mechanism where it's not punishing, but it's just, well, inconvenient. And inconvenient is something that everyone can handle, because at some point it will have almost the same effect as losing XP. You will just like, okay, if I just run back there and I do that like 5 times, it takes me like 10 minutes each time, so I'll lose like 1 hour almost. So I'd rather go somewhere else. If I spend that 1 hour on a different grinding spot with less XP, I would just end up with the same XP boost or amount that I can have. So we're still discussing that and we're still considering this. However, we haven't got to a conclusion at this stage, but it's still in our minds. So this is not forgotten.
Okay. All right, fine, no problem. Right, so I've got a few questions left. You guys mentioned a new marketplace system recently. I can't remember exactly where I read it. It might have been on MMORPG. I think you guys did an interview with them, maybe. Are you able to explain a bit more about this marketplace system? Because it's essentially to try and stop people who may be using, hacks to instantly snipe things off the auction house.
Right. So this feature, as will come at some point to our service, will be that once an item is registered and is listed, there's a apparently like a certain chance. I'm just quoting or reciting what I have been told.
Is this the
because I
current?
haven't
Sorry, are
had
you
the
talking about the current system, or is this what it's going to be
Mm,
changed to?
No, the reservation system that you were asking about.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, I got confused there. Sorry. Go on.
All right. So the reservation should work as follows: that any player can place a reservation on an item that he wants, and he can place a bid. And if he is the highest bidder for that particular item, he will technically get that item once it's listed and offered for the purchase.
Okay. So when you the highest bid, you mean like in terms of like bidding the most amount of money? So like if an ogre ring came up, I would bid 100 million silver for when it comes up for sale, and I'd get it if I have the highest bid.
That's according to the information that I have so far, yes, because I haven't had the chance to QA it yet myself on our internal server.
Okay.
Once we have that feature implemented, we will share more insight about this as soon as possible. But that's all I can give at this stage.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. Right. That's it's nice to know that when we're getting a new system like that. That's will hopefully allow us to get more stuff.
But it clearly shows that the developers are again like they're reading and following up on the feedback, on the major feedback, and they trying always to adapt to exactly what the community actually is asking for in the majority at least.
Sure. Yeah, that's good to hear. So next question is: certain classes, like wizard, have a lot of cooldowns, and these can really clog up our screens. A lot of people was asking if there was a possibility that we could, you get the cooldown bar that appears on your screen.
Yes.
You can't move where it is, or at
Correct.
least it's what a lot of people have told me. Yeah, is there a possibility to get that implemented so that we can move the CD bar, because it can get pretty in the way sometimes.
I'd say this is the same level as the previous quality of life changes.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's definitely something that would be up to change at some point.
Yeah, it's just it's something that is kind of annoying, and it would really, especially in PvP, sometimes I can't see what's going on sort of like the left side of my screen. I can't really see what's going on because I've got so many cooldowns up. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up to you guys so that maybe you could look into it and perhaps bring it in so we could move it. So the next question is, so I talked about this a little bit earlier, is the loot bag system that you get when you're in a party.
Yes.
And basically, there are a couple things to do with it, and the first one is we were encouraged recently with you made some changes, didn't you, to World Bosses, that now if you're in a group you get additional hunter seals, or something along those lines. So we group up in my guild. We always have done. A few of us group up. We've had this happen once or twice now, that a piece of rare loot will drop, and before we have a chance to notice it, they get sold. Because, someone's scrolling through the marketplace, they see a tree spirit belt come up on special deals and they snipe it. So would it be possible to get a delay put on those items that come up, or sort of like, like a grace period essentially before the items are listed on the marketplace from your loot bag, if that makes sense?
It absolutely makes sense, and I absolutely understand that problem myself because I've been there as well. But the feedback so far that we got is that they're actually working currently on improving the distribution system. We don't have any details at this stage.
Okay.
It's still in development. Usually their development time is very short. So once they finalize the concept, they're fairly fast on implementing it. However, it's always a matter of prioritization because there's other things like, for example, the siege war currently that obviously needs more attention than minor changes. However, this is an important feature, more important, I would say, than any other quality of life change actually mentioned before.
Yeah.
Because it's fairly annoying.
Yeah. Just to go on a little bit on that is also, obviously I've got like you say, you grind, sounds like you do it as well, and you go through your loot bag like the next day and you have hundreds and hundreds of Kriya weapons and random, stones which don't sell and stuff like that. So it's like, could there be almost like a time limit on them, and if they don't sell, they get automatically rolled for and sent to your mailbox so you can just, vendor scrap them? Because otherwise they're stuck in there eternally unless every single person who was in that group rolls on it.
I believe that it's part of their plan of improving the whole distribution system. So the loot bag back then, what I can remember actually about this was, I think it was roughly 2 months ago when we actually implemented the loot bag. This was also based on community feedback again, and it was not completely finalized or perfectly improved system, because I think it was adapted to Korean servers at some point and then was removed again. And it took us a little bit of convincing to actually re-implement it into our system. So I believe they did their best what they could do on such a short time back then, and they haven't had the chance to improve it ever since. So that's definitely something they're going to pursue sooner or later.
Okay, cool. Just 3 more questions left now. So, is there any plan to implement a form of progression through PvP? So I know at the moment you get your red battlefield tokens, which you can use to turn into those good gems. So that does give you a good reason to PvP. But in terms of like other things, like you might be able to obtain certain types of armors or blackstones from PvPing, anything like that. Other MMOs have like honor systems, for example. You get honor and then you spend that honor on buying pieces of gear. Are there any plans for something like that?
There's two sides of that coin. So, for one, the developers are not really, and me neither, and I absolutely understand their idea or their concept about this, is that the PvP, if you offer progression through PvP in an MMO game such as BDO, it's really, really tough to put like regulations into this system without destroying the experience itself, whereas people can't abuse it to gain a major benefit.
Right. Okay.
I can imagine several games that I played in the past, and there were some like things that you could gain, like something that was really valuable through PvP gameplay. The problem is that, for example, let's say you need like 10 people to start the red battlefield, or 20 people. And let's say you do that with a guild, like in the middle of the night when there's nobody else online. You can technically just 10 people go in,
like win
just
trading.
lose on purpose. Yeah, exactly. Right. So then you could technically just farm from the particular item, and that's kind of destroys the cause or the intention of putting a incentive into this particular feature to give people the opportunity to progress through this particular feature. However, and that's the other side of the coin. Developers are really they really want to improve the more the role play aspect of the benefits, so to speak. I'm trying to rephrase that. So, for example, for holding a castle after winning like the siege war, I remember when I was back in January, I've been in Korea, and I had a talk with them like for several days, and we were actually just casually talking and brainstorming about additional features that they could implement for the siege war. So one of the ideas they had actually was, or what we came up with it in this discussion, was to, once you actually win and hold a castle, that if you go out into the region, that the people, the environment actually responds to you. So aside from gaining actually better amity from your servants or from your subjects in your area, for example, you hold Kalfion. So every person in Kalfion gives you like a better contribution or got a better amity. The other thing that could happen, for example, that contributes to the roleplay aspect, that, for example, all the NPCs actually bow down to you. So they actually acknowledge you as the ruler of that region.
That's quite cool.
So that would be exactly. So they want to rather cater into that direction in regards rather than progression, because progression is something you can abuse. The other benefits that is like more like honor based, or something that is like just something that's
you're noticed for, essentially, as opposed to giving you a distinct advantage over other players.
Exactly. So, for example, with the Siege War Season 4, you will be able to get a crown, and you can actually wear it for a certain time, and that actually makes you the king, sort of that environment.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Let's hope we all get castles then. So, couple more left is. Wow, actually, there's one that I want to add. I've seen it quite a lot asked today, and I'm actually really curious myself, and it should be a very quick question. When are we getting hunting? Is that coming with part 1, or?
Hunting should, at least as for now, is planned for a Valencia update.
So, Valencia part 1, does that mean?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, cool. Does that mean, will that then mean that we get the, I can't remember the exact name for it, the massive whale? Not the normal whaling, but the massive whale, like the world boss whale?
We did receive the patch notes already, but I haven't seen that particular feature yet.
Okay.
It could still be updated in the next 1 or 2 weeks. I would have to investigate about that myself. So
Okay.
I really can't tell you about that part.
Nah, right, that's fine. Okay, no problem. But we should be getting Honey in part 1. That'd be cool. Um, hang on. Right, okay. Are there any new features that you guys are planning on adding that you can give us like a sneak preview on? Is there anything like particularly interesting that's coming out? So obviously we know that we're going to be getting Korean content eventually. But is there any sort of like unique things that we're getting in the Western version or anything about that?
Not necessarily unique. It will most likely be rolled out to all services, but something they pointed out is they are planning, and that's something was new for me actually today as well. So I'm really excited about this one. Is they are currently planning to renew the skill awakening system, because right now they understand that it's really tedious and annoying as hell, or can be annoying as hell, with all the randomness to require like memory fragments and grinding connected to actually constantly resetting your skill awakenings to actually get the awakening that you actually want. So they kind of try to go into a direction where you can actually, you do have to do something, but the progression will result automatically in you being able to choose which kind of feature you want to add to your skill.
Okay. All right, that'll be cool. Right, so a bit more customization essentially, so we might not be so much of a sort of like a cookie cutter kind of build thing going on.
Exactly. It would not be as random, especially with the increasing prices on the memory fragments lately.
Yeah, they're getting a little bit out of control. It is getting insane. I mean, I think they're around that price, so we're getting towards the Korean prices already, which I thought would have taken a lot longer to do. But yeah, I mean, you could always increase the drop chances of relic shards, make our lives easier. So I have two more things. I've got one that I kind of links up to an old question, then I've got one more, then I will let you go. So I asked about the die system earlier, and you said there was no plans to implement it in terms of silver in the game. However, there is an item on Korea called the Palette of Merv. Are we gonna get that? Because then that would kind of, I mean, I know it's still real money, but then you're kind of skipping the RNG element of trying to get the correct dies. So are we gonna get the Palette of Merv?
So about the Palette of Merv, I can tell you one particular thing. It's not as beautiful as it may seem. So the main issue, the Palette of Merv itself, the feature, I really like it, and I would have actually we probably had the chance, or we could have adapted it already a little bit earlier. But we actually decided against it for like a particular reason, which is that currently the feature is slightly inconvenient to use. The main problem that derives from the Palette of Merv, and I don't know if you remember that from the Korean service, is you can only use a color from the Palette of Merv on an armor that is completely not dyed at all.
Yes.
So in other words, if you used actually already dye ampules, and we already into the service, so a lot of people actually already spend money on dye ampule or dye colors, and they use those, and even with just like one color on a set that has maybe like 10 different color settings, even if you use just like one color, you actually require bleach to remove that color first, and then you can apply the Palette of Merv.
Yeah.
So that is a very inconvenient feature. So we're still discussing with the developers to actually, well, not fix it, but just change that feature into whereas you can actually just recolor whatever, even if it's already colored with dye. But I believe there's a technicality around that makes like this rather impossible.
Right, okay.
We were also considering to sell Palette of Merv, including like a big bunch of free bleach.
Yeah.
But the other problem that would derive out of that is that how you're going to educate players that have no familiarity with that item that, hey, you need to bleach your item first. I mean, there's a pop-up message that tells you exactly that, but it's still going to be very inconvenient and cause a lot of tickets probably.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to pursue a rather different road. I would rather wish for something that is something in between Palette of Merv and the current dye system. But that's still an ongoing project for the last weeks, month. So that might take a little bit of time.
Okay, cool. And the last one, before I let you get off, is this is kind of just an overall question. How do you guys feel like the game is going at the moment? Are you on track for where you wanted to be, or has there been a lot more problems than expected? So sort of just your overview of how you feel about the game in general.
Me personally, as a publisher, or the developer's opinion on this?
Oh, why have we got both? Like, the developers give one as well. Because let's hear both.
Okay. So the developer's opinion about this is mainly that they're still trying to improve the weaknesses of the game and to make it better. To improve and finalize their piece of art, to refer to the metaphor that I used before. And they also believe that the advantage of an online game is that it can constantly improve and reform continuously. Other than like most client-based games where you have like one patch once in a while, or maybe like a couple of download content and that's it. That is also more or less reflecting actually on my opinion, or the publisher's opinion about Black Desert so far. It's an ongoing progress. At the very early stage in the PM diary, I think in February, I mentioned that after there were some complaints about some feature that we changed, I mentioned, please give us time um, to evolve into our own, or to develop our own version of BDO. And I think so far we did a pretty good job on making the game experience different from the Korean version, especially in the aspects where it was needed. I don't think this task or this mission is finished yet. I think this is an ongoing mission for the next month to come, or year. We constantly need to change and adapt to the ongoing environment changes, where community demands certain features, and we want to cater that. And there has been a lot of rambling in the forum, not just lately, but just ever since we started with the service, because there's like the game managed to polarize almost like unlike any other out there, because of the strong PvE content and the strong PvP content.
Yeah,
it's clear. Some people would judge BDO as a clear PvP game. Others would say like, no, this is a roleplay PvE game.
you're never gonna please everyone. Like, yeah,
Exactly.
you're never gonna please anyone. I mean, as long as you guys are
Exactly. It's
working to
impossible.
improve the major problems and things, what it sounds like you are, in terms of the hacking and the desync and stuff like that, the things that affect absolutely every player in the game.
Yes, and that's our main target, to actually make the game enjoyable and get rid of it, just smoothen the edges basically. So this is an ongoing progress. We had still a lot of catching up until, let's say, end of April. We had quite a little bit of catching up to do with everything that we had going on from the launch, because the launch, as you know, was quite rough, especially for the American service, where we had like some mix up at the very beginning in the early access phase, and there was a lot of things going on in between where we had to do some cleaning up, also with the horse issue back then. But we're getting to the point where we can actually, instead of like smoothing out the edges behind us, progressively and proactively work on coming up with our own ideas to make the future a little bit more like brighter, so to speak.
Okay, that's cool. I promise this is going to be the last thing I ask. I'm not going to lie, this is more for me. Because I really want to... I just... This is like the most upsetting thing you guys ever did, personally, for me in the game. You guys changed alchemy stones a while back to how they're enchanted, to what the items they need to enhance them. I don't know if you know much about this. Why? And is there any, like... Because basically what happened was, it went from costing... it basically, like, quadruples the cost in money in terms of upgrading your alchemy stones, and it made it a very hard thing to progress through. Like,
can you still afford it?
Not really, kinda. Kinda not as much now. It's not profitable at all at the moment, like, anymore. Like, you can never, unless you luck out seriously, you really can't make money off of alchemy stones anymore.
I cannot give you a particular answer to that question, though. But I can elaborate on at least my opinion about it. Generally speaking, there's almost no feature in this game that actually allows you to gain or make a profit on whatever you do, aside from grinding. And that's, well, technically speaking, you cannot just really turn a profit in like, even if you craft, like, unless you gather everything yourself, I mean, you're going to contribute a lot of time.
Oh, and you mean like... Yeah, I see what you mean. You mean like if I was to buy something off the marketplace to craft it into something else, I probably wouldn't make money.
Exactly. So it's really hard to make a profit. Yeah, but even if you take... Let's just assume you're making a boat, which costs like, I don't know, like 1 million, roughly, like a ferry right now.
Yeah.
And you would gather all the resources, you spend all the beer, you spend the time in actually... cooking the beer yourself. You need to chop the wood yourself. You need to refine all the other materials yourself. So at the end of the day, you contribute like a lot of energy, a lot of time. And if you would use that time for other means in the game, you would probably gain more money than what you invested into building that boat and selling it on the marketplace, including the tax that we have.
But it's the enjoyment feature of it. Like...
So that kind of plays into the whole.
Sorry, go on.
Exactly. It's just like be your own, well, supplier, basically. So be your own supplier. So technically, the game is not made to make a profit on those things. It's just made to, well, you can enjoy it yourself. You can craft your own boat. You don't have to sell it again. You're supposed to use it yourself. So, I mean, that's the whole concept of all the life professions so far. So
Really? So in your like, because the way I see it, or the way I would like to see it, is that I hate grinding. It's not my thing. I do it to level. I will never do it for money, really. So my idea behind life skills is that that should be the alternate way to make money. Maybe not as much money as like grinding. But yeah, there is definitely money to be made in life skills. There definitely is. But it's things like the changes to the alchemy stone, which make it very hard to turn a profit in skills like alchemy. And that was one of the concerns that a lot of us, people who actually do enjoy the life skills section of the game, were a bit concerned about.
I think that we can just go back to the previous answer from developers. What I just recited, that they are trying to improve and reform it continuously, and that there's a lot of A/B testing.
Yeah.
So if the majority actually feels uncomfortable with a certain change, then they should raise their voice. However, if that's done in a very polite and constructive way, in the forum especially, then we will pay attention to that, and then we take that in and try to see whether we can adapt to it or not. But other than that, I think that's just the way the developers actually intended this to actually play out in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But to give you like an exact answer to your question, I would have to ask the developers particularly about this change, because there's a lot of changes that I do ask and inquire about, but it's not all the changes, such as this one. So if you would like to, or if we would like to have a proper answer to this one, we would have to make another interview in a month maybe, and then I can reply to that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'm sure we could. Yeah, I'm sure people have lots more questions they want to ask. But yeah, I mean, those are the ones that I picked from the thing. I'm sure you've got stuff, wonderful stuff to be doing and everything. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me, for doing this. I really do appreciate it. We've got some quite good answers as well. So I'm still baffled by the node thing, the node energy thing. I'm going to start dumping my energy into my ogres now.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks, man. But yeah, thank you very much. I really do appreciate your time, and I'm sure we will speak again soon in the future.
All right, thanks for having me. Have a nice day.
All right, thanks a lot, mate. Take it easy. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.